Triggers are both opportunities and invitations for personal growth and emotional well being. They essentially highlight areas where you can bring love and compassion to yourself and your past experiences to ultimately foster growth, healing, and transformation in your life. Triggers occur because we carry unresolved pain and trauma from our past. Most people experience some type of wound in their childhood. And if that wound hasn't been addressed and properly healed, then we'll get arrested in our emotional development, meaning that when we experience something that subconsciously reminds us of that pain that we experienced way back then we'll revert back to exhibiting the very behaviors and responses that a child of that age or a person of that age would have had. And that might look like lashing out, breaking down, or just coping in other unhealthy ways. So, by paying attention to recurring emotional responses in different situations, you can actually gain insight into the specific events or circumstances that trigger intense emotions inside of you. Criticism, rejection, abandonment, loss, betrayal, or invalidation are all common triggers that you may have experienced. In the next few minutes, I'll help you process through a trigger that maybe recently came up for you. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to go somewhere where you can be alone and be comfortable and without any distractions. And once you're settled in, I want you to take a few deep breaths. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth as if you are blowing out through a straw. Breathe in and out. Allow the weight of your body to simply sink into the seat below you. Take a moment and recall something that happened recently that made you feel bad or uncomfortable. And it doesn't have to be something huge, but it should be something that caused a response in you that you felt on a visceral level. You could feel it in your body. Maybe you felt your blood pressure rising or your heart beating faster. Maybe tears welled up in your eyes or you screamed obscenities. Maybe something happened at work that comes to mind, or with a friend or a family member, or even a stranger. Allow yourself to go back to that event. What was happening? What was the actual trigger that caused your response? And what was it that made you so upset? Was it that your feelings weren't considered? Maybe you didn't feel seen or heard? What thoughts were you having in that moment? And next, identify the feelings that you experienced. Sudden anger, sadness, fear, hopelessness, helplessness, loneliness, feelings of inadequacy. And if none of those resonate with you, just choose any words that come up for you right now. They don't even have to be actual feelings, just any words that come up. Maybe just think of 3 words that define the situation for you. What memories or images come to mind when you focus on those words or feelings? And if nothing is coming up for you, take a moment and ask your heart, when was the first time that you remember having that feeling? And once you recall a time where you felt that same way, stay with that thought. Take yourself back. You may be surprised by what comes up in you. And it may not seem like it's even relevant or that it connects with the emotions that you were having. Give yourself a moment to explore and become curious about what is coming up for you. Next, picture that younger version of yourself and what she was experiencing. What does she look like? What was she going through at the time? What happened to her? Look in her eyes. What do you see? What was she needing? Comfort her in the way you would an innocent child or close friend. Tell her that you can see that she's hurting and that you're not going anywhere. Assure her that she's not alone and that she can feel this way as long as she needs to. Tell her that it's okay to have big emotions. It makes sense that she feels that way. And take your time here. When you're ready, bring yourself back to the present moment and the event that happened recently that caused the pain to resurface. Have compassion for yourself as you now understand why this circumstance or situation was so upsetting for you. It resurfaced pain that had been suppressed for months or years or even decades. Allow yourself space to grieve that pain. Give yourself the space to experience the emotion, to feel it in your body, and to accept the emotion with love and compassion. Allow yourself to become curious without judgment, asking yourself, what were you ultimately desiring the moment before you were met with that feeling in the present? Maybe you were seeking approval or connection, belonging or comfort. Perhaps you just needed to be seen or heard, or maybe you were seeking validation, significance, recognition, or approval. Whatever comes up for you, acknowledge that there is nothing wrong with having this desire. Now that you have identified the core desire, you know that the only reason you responded in the way that you did, the only reason that you invited that triggered response is because you had a healthy need that went unmet. You were doing the best you knew how with the tools you had. You didn't realize that it opened a wound that had never been properly healed. Give yourself compassion. Take a moment to close your eyes and picture yourself with your desire as if it were in your hands and tangible. Hand that desire to God and ask Him, how do you want to fulfill this desire? Take the first thought, feeling, or thing that you sense. And if it is filled with love, kindness, and goodness, trust that it's Him. And remain in this space as long as you need.